Hello, my name is Trudi and I'm from East Hertfordshire Family Centre Services. Today I'm going to talk about fine and gross motor skills. Now then, gross motor skills are the large movements children make, like stretching and climbing and running and balancing. These are all mostly movements that involve the larger muscles, the arms and the legs and the torso. These include balance, coordination, body awareness, physical strength and reaction time. It's important that these are developed because they in turn support the finer movements, the smaller muscles and the finer motor skills, and children will develop these at a different pace. And to support this development, there's lots of things you can do in your day-to-day activities, like visit the park on a regular basis so that they can run and climb and balance on logs, climb on the apparatus. They can help with sweeping, they can help dig in the garden if you've got a garden. Painting on large surfaces like your delivery boxes with nice big paintbrushes is really good and is such fun. Maybe have a bucket that you can fill with water so that on a dry day they can dip in the water and paint the fences and the ground. This is really, really good for those big movements and also involves a bit of evaporation science as well. So that's a really good thing to be doing. If you don't mind having chalk on your pavement outside or your pathway, you can get some of those big chunky chalk so that they can do some big drawings on the pathway and make lovely, lovely designs and colourful pictures with those. They can help you with hanging up the washing and putting the lids on containers and on and off and stacking, possibly. Oopsie, let's have a look down here. If you've got some containers, I know we don't always have matching ones, but they can stack containers and they can take the lids off and possibly fill them with different things and make nice sounds with them. That's a really good one for building up. If they've got some blocks at home, they can build the blocks up. You can support them by helping them climb the stairs and see if they can practice putting one foot in front of the other and then support them coming down the stairs as well. Quite often children come down on their bottoms first. That's okay. They're learning to do it independently. My granddaughter says, "I can do this, Nanny," and then she wants her hand out and she needs very slowly to be supported coming down the stairs. So all that stuff that you do outside is really, really important. But some of the things that you can do inside to support the fine motor skills can be things that you do around the house as well, like pegging up the washing I mentioned before. Or you could get yourself some pegs and a tin and children can practice squeezing that fine pincer movement, putting the pegs around the tin. This involves hand and eye coordination as well. You can get the dolly pegs to put around the tin as well. So very, very good fine motor control movements. It could be that you've got either a kitchen roll or a mug holder, and if you've got any bracelets and bits of jewellery and curtain rings where they can practice putting them on and off of the prongs that come out of the mug holder or onto a kitchen holder. This is a really nice one because it makes nice noise as well, and they love tipping them on and tipping them off again. You might be able to use a spinning top. This is just a cheap spinning top, but it involves that movement, that pincer movement, that fine motor skill. Whoop, it's not going to work on my nose. Pressing up and down, and that's quite complex actually to do. They might need to practice that one as well. Another thing is tongs. Now, I've got a little set of tongs here from a local hardware store, and they're really, really good for picking things up and moving them around. And if you've got a couple of bowls or tins, they can move corks, conkers. Got a fiddly wooden egg box here, egg cup I mean, and even they're small animals, they can move around with the tongs. And again, you've got that fine motor mill, building up those strong muscles in their hands. That's quite a good fun one with these sponges as well. These sponges work. And talking about sponges, nothing better doing some washing up or playing within the bath is squeezing the sponges. All the water comes out and the bubbles and the foam, and that is really supporting that grasp and that fine motor control and all those muscles in their hands. Remember, if you've got smaller children and you have conkers and things, you need to make sure that they're not going to be swallowable. So keep an eye on your children with some of the things that you're using. Play-Doh is a really, really good thing to be doing with your children. You can make Play-Doh quite simply. This is a cooked dough. It lasts for absolutely ages. You can keep it in an ice cream tub or margarine tub. And this again is really good for squeezing, for rolling, for making cakes. Oopsie. And another good thing is if you've got some spaghetti, you can put the spaghetti in and get yourself some pasta and thread the pasta onto the spaghetti. And if you really want to challenge them, you can try, it's hiding in here somewhere, a bit of macaroni. Where are you, macaroni? You're all fiddly and fine. There you are, look, macaroni. There you go. And that takes some doing as well, and concentration. But they will do it. If you challenge them, they'll love it. The other thing you can do with pasta is make animals and use the pasta to make animal shapes, hedgehogs, slugs, you name it, they can make what they like with it. I do use the cheaper variety, the essential ranges, or maybe some flour or spaghetti that's very, very close to their sell-by date, so we're not wasting any food. Another thing that's really, really good for children, for mark making on a tray, you can either use a garden tray that you can get from your local garden centre. I've got a large one that I use. I'm just using a baking tray now, which you can use as well. And you can use ordinary flour, but at the moment I'm going to use some corn flour. Now this is really lovely for mark making. You can do all sorts of things in here. It may be that your child is at the stage where you can do the letters in their name. Possibly, they won't do the same, but you might be able to do it with them and show them. It could be that it's just making lovely patterns, circles, some up and down movements, side to side movements. Flour is really good as well for rolling cars backwards and forwards. So if your children aren't very fond of mark making in the conventional way, like using pencils and pens, it could be that they can mark make with their trains or their cars. It could be that they use some paintbrushes like this. Now, corn flour mix is another lovely thing to be doing with your children, because they can mix the corn flour with water. I've got some in here I did earlier, and I'm going to add a little bit more water to it, and it makes a really lovely gloopy mess. Now this can be stirred, which is good, a really lovely movement. It can be lifted and tipped and poured, or they can get their fingers in it. Now this clears up quite easily. If you let it dry, you can scoop it all into a bowl with a lid and use it again, probably one more time. It depends how dirty it gets really. You can add food colouring to it, but it will sweep up off the floor quite nicely. So although it looks like a huge mess, it isn't too much of a mess. Now another thing we can talk about is scissors, and that's a really tricky thing for children to be using and learn to use. Now I've got some messy spaghetti here, which is good for all sorts of play, but it's also really good for snipping. Now it could be that you've got the usual kind of scissors that they use in school. It could be that you've got some from the supermarket, but I quite like to use the little nail scissors, because for small hands it really is a lot easier with a smaller pair of scissors. You can get left-handed scissors, but you need to get them from a really good website. You'll find them online, because some of the left-handed scissors, the blade isn't quite right and it won't slice, and it gets very, very frustrating. When you're teaching your children to use scissors, stand alongside them and model using them. Children who are challenged with body position and people in front of them in their face would prefer that as well. Explain what you're doing at each stage. Look, I'm using my thumb and my finger to open and shut. It looks like a crocodile's mouth, doesn't it? Opening and shutting. It could be when they start cutting that it's literally you hold the paper and they snip, 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 snip. Fringing is really popular. And when they get more able, it could be that they can hold the paper and cut. They're not going to be cutting around specific shapes at this stage. Gluing and sticking is really good as well for this, but the messy spaghetti is fabulous for snipping. Lots of lovely snipping going on in there, and they love to do it as part of their play. Remember to talk about scissor safety, about not walking around with them, and how to hold them if they are moving. Now, children sometimes like to sit down, but quite often I've discovered that they much prefer to stand up when they're doing these kind of things. So make sure they've got a nice sturdy surface that they can probably lean their tummy against to keep them steady while they're concentrating on cutting, snipping, painting or drawing or building. Another thing that you can make Play-Doh wise is the silk dough, and you just need a cheap bottle of hair conditioner. Choose your scent carefully because it might be something you don't like, and just mix it in with the dry corn flour. We've got a recipe for this coming up later. Now over here I've got the inside of a package box that my granddaughter was gluing on the other day, and I've just used a bit of bump that came through the door. I did the cutting. I did some snipping out, and she just spent a lot of time gluing and sticking. And then she went away, and then she came back, and then she went away, and then she came back, and then she peeled all the bits off that she'd stuck on. But this is her little creation. It doesn't really matter about what's finished. It's not about the product, it's about the doing. So just practicing these things. They're never going to be the greatest works of art, but you might treasure them. Insides of cereal boxes are really, really useful for just gluing and sticking and painting on, and they're also really good to practice those cutting skills because it's not wasteful and you can use them to cut. It will be the case that children will want to do things again and again and again. That's all about them learning, practicing and building muscle and brain memory, so that when they go to do it, they can either do it a little bit better next time, a little bit better next time. It's about the power of yet. I may not be able to do it yet, but I will be able to do it soon with lots and lots of practice. Now, playing with things like tea sets and pouring. I get all my stuff from the charity shops. You can pick these up quite cheaply. But playing with the water again is another thing to help prove both gross and fine motor skills, because they're heavy. When it's filled with water, it's quite heavy, and you can tip and pour into cups and props that you've got for the children. You use this in the bath. Bath time's a great time for water play. Shaving foam is another fabulous mark making activity you can do. And let me see, what can I do? I'm going to do it on a white tray, so you're not going to see it too well. So those black trays are really useful. Just a cheap one. Give it a shake, and then you're going to have to squirt it on. Whoa. It's fabulous for mark making, and it's a really lovely sensory thing to be doing. And again, my granddaughter just loves this. It's soothing, it's calming. She likes to fill cups with it. She likes to run paintbrushes through it, but best of all, she likes her fingers on it and rub it all up her arms. She's a very sensory child, but this is a really lovely thing to do, and it's quite easy. You just rinse it down the sink when you're finished. But I can't because I don't have a sink. I'm going to use my paper towel. Anyway, that's just a few of the ideas that you can do to help your children with their fine and gross motor skills. Don't forget, being outside is the best place to support those gross motor skills. It's so important for children to be outside and in the park and running and climbing and swinging and going up the ladder to go down the slide and do all those things. And when you've got time, do some of the other things indoors. They don't take too long, they're quite easy, and while they're playing you might be able to sit down and have a little flask of coffee in peace and quiet. while they're having a play. Okay, it's time for me to go now. See you all again very soon. Bye for now. Bye bye.